Oh, and that's the way he's going to start. You guys don't know because he's not allowed to cuss for the first few seconds, but he sort of cussed me out. You guys just don't know he did it. Hey guys, welcome to another very twisted episode here on YouTube or wherever you're listening or watching or whatever you're doing. We're going to be giving you another fun special treat. Thank you to everybody who watched Bicycle Man. I hope you felt as bad as we did after that one. If you haven't watched it, just look down below. You'll be able to find all our previous videos, including
there.
Bicycle Man.
Yeah, it'll be in a playlist too. So
epic different strokes episode. Ugh. So why not lighten it up a little this week and talk about cults?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah.
So this week we decided we were going to talk about Boy Meets World cult fiction. This is season 4, episode 21, and this one rolled out in 1997. So before we get real deep into it, I want to ask Matt your thoughts on Boy Meets World. Were you a big fan of the show?
I was very much a big fan of the show. Topanga.
Yeah, well.
Just saying. Hey, Topanga.
that was it. That was why you're
I'm on the show. No, it was just a fun show to watch. It kind of came out like when I was around their age, so I kind of like literally was growing up with them as the show was going on, up to and including them being in college, which that was a cool thing that they just like went that far.
It's funny that you would say it like that because I was a few years older and I actually didn't start watching it right at the very beginning when they were kids. I picked it up a couple seasons in when they were like a little bit older and then went back and watched the older episodes. So that kind of makes sense. I kind of get that. So yeah. I was a fan of the show too. I think it's a really fun show. Well written for the most part. And then, you get in the college years and it's funny because Fred Savage has like a
weird cameo.
And he directed some of the episodes too, and that's Ben Savage. That's his brother.
Yeah.
So if you guys don't know, Ben Savage, obviously Corey on Boy Meets World, and then Fred Savage was on The Wonder Years and The Princess Bride, and a bunch of other stuff, and of course went on to be like a director. So he's still out there doing a lot.
He's in. Was it Austin Powers? He's in that too.
Yeah.
Where he's the mole. Mole.
Guacamole. Yes. So, we threw a couple of very special episodes out there, and I asked Matt, what do you feel like this week? And he said, let's do this one. And I was like, all right. So we watched it. This, of course, is available on Disney Plus, so you guys can go over to Disney Plus and watch all of Boy Meets World over there. Like I said, all episodes are available. Give them a watch. There's also Girl Meets World, which is the quirky follow-up, which was a weird show, but still kind of fun. And I like that they had a lot of returning characters, so you should go over there and watch them both.
Yeah.
So the show over now, we're going to have some differing opinions, and that's fine. The show overall, Boy Meets World, is great. They don't always stay consistent with Shawn's backstory, or they make it very confusing. They mention a brother or half brother early on. For like a single episode, he has a sister, but then we never hear anything about her ever again. Then in college, we found out he has another half brother, which is it Matthew Lawrence?
I think it's Matthew Lawrence. Yeah,
it's Matthew Lawrence,
and we'll edit the truth down below. Whatever, we'll fact check ourselves live.
And this was in my notes, which is funny because then you brought it up when we were talking like yesterday. We also have Minkus, who suddenly vanishes towards the end of the high school episodes, and you brought it up because you were like, oh my god, do you remember the really funny thing about Minkus? And we did. We both remember the exact same thing. He shows up like the last episode when they're in either high school or something like that. I don't know. It might have been the very last episode, period. But they're like, wait, Minkus, where have you been? He's like, what are you talking about? I turned left. And it's just like he just went the other way down the hallway.
Yeah.
And I love that they brought it back and made a joke of it.
So and you know that they told somebody, like, go back and look at this specific episode and tell me what happens. When is the last time we see him on screen? It's like, oh, he walks down the hallway and takes a left instead of a right.
Turns left.
Yeah.
There's a lot of continuity problems with the show, but the show overall is good. And I think they just took a little time to find. And we're going to talk about a big one on this episode, but we'll get to that in a few seconds. There's a big continuity problem, in my opinion. One of the big
yeah.
I like the show overall. I felt like this was kind of a cheesy episode. I know you said it hits a little close to home for you in some spots.
Yeah.
But the problem is when you're trying to cram a big storyline into like 22 minutes, it's rough. And I think the problem you have here is they did everything within like a day.
Yeah.
Like this whole thing. And in the first hour, they didn't even change clothes, right? So
I'm gonna have to go back and watch. I don't know if they if they ever did. You're like, oh wow.
Change. They do. I mean, they do change clothes, but like for the first big chunk of this, and Corey even makes a comment at one point, like an hour, Shawn. And yeah, so for the very beginning of this, like, okay, so let's
like,
give
how are you already brainwashed? Jeez.
Let's give a little tiny.
Which, by the way, I have a theory on this little cult. By the way, so go ahead.
Let's give a real quick overview of what this episode was about.
Yeah.
It starts off right from the beginning with the everybody's out to get Shawn thing, right? He feels that way, but really everybody's trying to help him. They take a test in class. His grades aren't so good. Mr. Turner, like, if you guys don't know the show, Shawn's always had a bad, like, rough upbringing. And for a while, he stayed with the Matthews family. And for a while, he ended up staying with one of his teachers, Mr. Turner, who's a really cool dude. Almost pseudo adopts him for a season or so.
Yeah, he comes as his guardian, I think is what it was. Like, his actual legal guardian.
Now, at this point, Shawn's back with his actual parents, right? So, but it's still, they have kind of rough, he has kind of a rough life, with his parents.
Yeah.
And they're trying to make things work. So,
and everybody kind of has that one friend. I mean, most people do, at least.
Yeah.
Have that one friend growing up that, like, Matt, man, he's over at our house. And
Matt, sweetie, you were that one. No, just
yeah.
Matt's like, yeah, maybe it was.
My mom's gonna watch this and go, no, man, that was our house. Everybody came to our house.
Yeah, I'm sure your mom seems really cool.
Yeah, hi, Mom.
I definitely know what you're talking about. We all kind of had that one friend that probably had a hard time in life, and that your family kind of adopted them. So, yes, exactly, and that's what Shawn is. They're a good kid overall. They've just had some bad stuff handed to them. But Shawn can be easily swayed because of this crap, and he meets this girl. There's this girl at class who's randomly put in. We've never seen this character before, but we're going to add her in this time.
Yeah, and everybody knows her name suddenly, including Shawn.
Convinces him to go to the center, which is a hangout spot, right? And they get to the center, and the trope of this episode begins. And I think I sent a clip because there's a lot of hugging in this episode. Everybody just starts hugging everybody in this episode. There's tons of everybody getting hugs, which would have weirded me out. If I'd have walked into the center place and instantly just everybody started hugging me, I would have been a little weirded out, but hey, whatever.
Yep. Physical contact is real strange sometimes, right?
So I really want to, from a bunch of strangers who you don't know that just randomly start coming up you went to hang out at a spot that you thought was like a hangout spot.
And there's no music playing at all. And he even mentions that. He's like, oh, is there like a DJ coming, a band coming? There's a stage set up. What's going on here?
It's weird.
Like, no, we're all going to hang out in silence and hug each other.
He figures out what's going on instantly.
Yeah, and he immediately is just like, screw it. I'll just stay here in this, what's obviously a cult. Yeah.
So you guys are a cult. He calls them out right in the first few seconds. Shawn knows what's going on. And she's like, we're not a cult. And then tries to convince him that it's just this really accepting place with this leader named Mr. Mack. And it's weird, man. I have some issues with this whole thing, but
which, by the way, Mr. Mack, played by the same guy who plays Styles in Teen Wolf.
I knew him.
Yep. I had mentioned it to Connie. I was like, I think this might be who I think it is, but I'm not real sure. And I looked it up on IMDb, and it is the same guy who plays Styles on Teen Wolf. He goes from surfing on top of a van to leading a cult.
So one of the things that throws me off about this episode right there is that so Shawn's been over there hanging out at the center for like an hour, and Corey worries about him and comes to get him. That seems weird. I understand Corey and Shawn are like always together, but like he's been gone for like an hour. It's not like he was missing for days. The Corey goes over there to get him, and Shawn's it's been an hour, and he's already like indoctrinated into the damn center.
He has, to use a term I'm not a fan of, drank the Kool-Aid.
But that fast.
Yeah.
Like real fast, man. Yeah, it wasn't even Kool-Aid, man.
It was Flavor-Aid. Let's get it right. Let's correct. Let's let the record stand. It was grape Flavor-Aid that everybody at Jonestown drank. Okay? We'll move on.
pour Kool-Aid, whose best flavor is tropical.
Oh, motherfucker. Let's do this shit. Okay. All right. It's black fucking cherry, and you know it.
Real quick, we got to tell the story. We can't get off on too much of a tangent real quick. Matt got...
I was not intending on doing this, by the way.
His ass banned from Facebook. Because he said, what'd you say, cherry Kool-Aid?
No. Black cherry Kool-Aid. Yes, you're bad. I will correct you. Black cherry Kool-Aid is the best flavor of Kool-Aid, and I challenge anybody to prove me wrong.
And I said...
And you lied and said...
No, I didn't lie. I meant it.
No, you did, because fruit punch is bullshit, okay?
I got on and said, I don't know, I kind of like fruit punch. And he said, I'll fruit punch you in the throat.
In the face. Specifically, it was in the face.
It doesn't matter. They banned him.
They banned me on Facebook.
And he comes back and he's like, what the hell? Jay's one of my best friends. And I was like, that's what happens when you mess with me, man.
Like we've referenced this event on the show a few times, but
it's a good tangent. It's a fun tangent, but
that is my genuine thought. Is I love black cherry Kool-Aid, and I love riling my friends up and getting them to have a pointless debate.
Yeah, I knew that's what you were doing. Yeah, but I love fun. Kool-Aid, but I do like fruit punch.
And okay, so I've done this exact thing for years. Yeah, it's always on the anniversary of the first time I did it, because it reminds me in the Facebook memories. So I just started again, and I just will share it again. I'm like, yep, still applies. It's the same thing. I still like black cherry Kool-Aid. And then inevitably somebody's like, I like Sharkleberry Finn. And I'm like, yeah, no.
Well, they're dumb.
Yeah, that's just dumb. Like, oh, I like a discontinued flavor. Oh, great. Go cry about it. Black cherry's around. It's always been around. It's stupid that there's a cherry Funko Pop and not a black cherry one, because it's clearly superior. Because cherry is just trash.
That's what I did. I set Matt off.
He set me off. So,
well, Matt, I guarantee that in this episode they made Shawn drink the Sharkleberry Finn.
If I ran a cult, everybody would be drinking black cherry Kool-Aid laced with arsenic. That's what I'm saying.
Disclaimer: Matt is not actually going to start a cult. But if he did, the Kool-Aid would be black cherry.
Did it bother you that Shawn instantly was like, "Oh, I'm centered. Let's hug." It's been an hour, dude.
And here's where my theory enters.
This is where I'm like, I need to sell this kid some property somewhere, because he's easily freaking swayed. But this is where one of my problems comes in later in the episode. So we'll start with your theory. This is where your theory enters. So let's hear your theory.
So if you notice, in the center, Mr. Mack has surrounded himself with a bunch of young teenagers, mostly really good-looking teenagers.
Yes.
There is
which is really disturbing and creepy.
It is. And they never really go too far into why he started this, but there's a little bit of a backstory that I don't know if they ever really go into between Mr. Feeny and the center. We'll come back to that later on.
Well, Feeny talks a little bit about it, and that he's been trying to shut it down for a long time.
Yeah, but how does he even know about this? Like, right. I don't mention it ever being, or notice it ever being mentioned before.
Yeah, not in this episode anyway.
But there is a recruiting method that a lot of cults use called honeypotting, which is where they take, or there's one, I can't remember the name of the cult, but they used a term flirty fishing, where they would take young, attractive men or women and send them out into the world and basically use sexual attraction to bring in more cult members. And what is her name? Sherry shows up out of nowhere at the school, which I'm assuming she's actually a student there, but she makes it very clear, like, you're coming with me and you're going to go to the center. And she recruits Shawn. They basically honeypotted Shawn.
Which I get. Yeah. So there's a joke about it in this, right, with Eric, because Eric shows up and he's like, I'm all in because there's good-looking girls here. Mm-hmm. But the problem with this is I could actually see this working better on Eric than I could on Shawn. I know that this show likes to point out that Shawn...
Yeah, see, right there. They did it to him again.
Yeah. And I know that they're like, Shawn can't find his place in the world. Like, I get that. But I also don't. He knew it was a cult like right off the bat, and within an hour, he's spewing. And I know
he willingly joined a cult.
I know there's a time constraint on a show, and I get where they had to do some of their focus.
Could have done a 2-part.
It was
like
rushed.
Different strokes. Could have done a 2-part.
I feel like it was rushed is my problem.
Yeah.
Because how easily at the end of this he sways back.
Yeah.
And he talks about, and we'll get into that, but he talks about he had doubts the whole time. I'm like, he sure as hell didn't act like he had. He was fighting everybody about it, arguing with them and everything. But
you're not centered. You're judging me.
Yeah, you're judging.
He starts using all the key phrases.
And you would say these things. Yeah. I never realized, and maybe it's just this episode, I don't know. This episode felt very preachy to me. And while I get what they're trying to do, there was definitely some weird stuff that you probably won't see on Disney Channel a lot these days. With there was a lot of prayer and talk of God, which is was a little weird. I don't have a problem with it, but it was also I wasn't used to that on a Disney type show.
Yeah.
But hey, whatever. So nobody can get him to listen. Like they're all trying. He's blowing everybody off. It's been about 2 days, guys. Also, all these kids are living at the center, and I understand some of them might be troubled teens. But you cannot make me believe that none of these parents are over there calling the cops, going, "Hey,
where's our kid?
This place is harboring my runaway child."
Yeah,
like that's and I know, but that's just it. I know these things do in fact happen in real life.
Yep.
But Feeny has been trying to get it shut down, so it might be. I don't know how they skirt these things, but they do, in real life. Yeah. So Shawn's been staying there, obviously, for a day or two as well. So, because his parents are, I think, out of town, and he was staying with the Matthews. And I'm going to say it, as luck would have it, there's a motorcycle wreck. And I say luck because what else would have swayed Shawn if not for this motorcycle wreck? Mr. Turner gets in a motorcycle wreck. Like, how far would he have gone had something that pulled him back? I don't know. So Mr. Turner, who I've always liked, I always liked the character of Mr. Turner. He actually, he tried out to be Mr. Matthews, and they thought he looked a little too young for the part. So Mr. Turner gets into a motorcycle accident while Shawn's over at the house arguing with the Matthews. Feeny comes out and tells them they go. Well, Shawn disappears.
By the way, are you having a hard time not going Feeny every time you mention his name?
Feeny.
Eric, yeah. Yes, I think that a lot, actually.
So he's gone on to be a really prolific voice actor, by the way.
Actor, yeah, he does a lot of voiceover work. Actually, I believe he has a podcast with Christy Carlson Romano.
Yeah.
They do a podcast about voice actors and stuff like that, so just check that out.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they all rush to the hospital, but Shawn takes off. They're like, where the hell is he going? Well, he shows up at the hospital with Mr. Mack. We get that scene. That is so intense that I'm surprised they left it in, but I'm glad they did. First of all, Mr. Mack mouthing off to Feeny, and Feeny stepping up to him saying and then Mr. Matthews, the shove against the wall is
that's right here.
Intense, man. It's it is so that's real. That is real.
Yeah.
And they had to an anger in his face, man. And you almost wonder, has he dealt with something?
Yeah. Which, I mean, it's entirely possible. I'm very curious to find out if that, why it was that intense. Because it looks like he could have genuinely injured.
I want to say
Styles. I'm calling him Styles, man. Mr.
Matthews and Mr. Feeny, they act the hell out of this episode.
Yeah, they do.
They are fantastic in this episode. They are wonderful. And then it's really weird when Mr. Feeny, then they go get in the car and his voice comes through and tells him to use the term.
God damn it.
For those of you who don't know, he's also the voice of Kit in Knight Rider. So
I was like, wait, never got in a car? I'm like, oh, son of a bitch. This is a Knight Rider joke.
It was a Knight Rider joke. But they do a great job in this. They're fantastic in this. But like I said, there's a motorcycle accident. They go. Then there's the whole scene where Corey and Topanga make Shawn go back in the room with him, and basically Corey tells me, you're not leaving. You're going to stay here. We're allowed to leave, but this man has cared for you and loved you, and you're going to stay here. And Shawn sits down next to him and starts talking to him, and then starts talking to God. And we get a little flex of the hand, and that they do a really good job of making Mr. Turner look like he was actually in an accident too. The makeup, I'm going to say this, was actually really well done. It wasn't over the top.
Yeah.
Did the prayer thing, did it throw you off at all? How abrupt it kind of came in?
Yeah, it was just kind of out of nowhere. But at the same time, like I see a lot of like jumping from one thing to another. Like I've seen that happen in real life where, you know, somebody is like heavily involved in something, like sometimes an addiction, you know, and they'll go from one thing to another to like, you know, stop that. But it's like super abrupt and it's really, really jarring whenever it happens. At least to the people around that person.
Yeah, I
who,
think that's
you know, got used to them being a certain way, and like all of a sudden it's like you know, we'll go with the born again Christianity, like that. You go from somebody who's not religious to suddenly they're very
the most
religious
person you've ever met in your life.
Yeah, and you're like, oh my God, you're a nightmare
reel it in
right
a
now.
little. Nobody wants to. You're right, and I'll give you that.
They're overcompensating for.
I think my issue with
not having that part of their life.
Our episode of Jesse's song, besides the fact that it was caffeine pills, and they're not highly addictive. I think my problem is both of these, and I get it. I do get it. We're talking about a 22-minute sitcom.
Yeah.
It happens too fast, but you could have written this over a period of days, even instead of 2 days. Like he could have went a couple of times. He could have questioned it a little bit. You could have written it as such.
Yeah,
that's my problem. He was all about the center in like an hour and a half, and then he's like telling Mr. Turner at his bedside, like, you always had me questioning it. But we never saw that. It never felt like Shawn was questioning.
It wasn't earned. It wasn't really earned.
It didn't feel like he was. And I understand. I get it. You go on the internet and people love this episode. Like, they talk very highly about how much they remember this episode and how it really affected them. And it affected you because so Matt and I both grew up in some similar situations. And we talked about this, and I know we might get a little hate for this, and that's okay. We're not bashing on anybody. Let me start by that. And I'm not saying all organized religion is this way, but there are a lot of organized religions that you don't think this is what's going on, but they are indoctrinating children exactly like this.
That's exactly what's happening.
Here we understand you. Here we love you. Outside, they don't. You need to be protected in this bubble and not ask questions. And the real world's hard on you, but here you're protected. And it's like you are, but you're also outside of everything that's real.
Yeah, so and here's the thing. When that weekend retreat ends, like in my case, you're right back in there, and you're back in the real world.
And worse for the wear. Yeah, because they're doing just the opposite.
They're not preparing you to how to deal with the real world.
They're taking away the tools you have to prepare and telling you that they're giving you, and they're telling you, well, you're sheltered by this love. And it's like, except that love doesn't help me when this guy over here is bullying the shit out of me. And for acting this way, and whether that kid should be acting that way or bullying you, that's not the question here. He's going to, and so that I think that's an issue. So yes, you and I have both experienced this to some degree, and I guess that's why it probably, and a lot of people I think have, and that's why when you read all these reviews online, people like talk about this episode and how important it was to them.
Yeah.
Also, we get really good acting from these kids. That's one of the pluses about this show.
Yeah, some of them really act brainwashed.
Yeah. Oh my God! Just watch some of the kids in the background of some of those scenes.
Oh, by the way, speaking of in the background, did you notice there's one of the extras? I wish you would have like noticed it and clipped it. One of the extras like shakes his ass, just like real. He does this little like, as the camera's panning by, like he knew exactly when the camera was going to be on him. He's like, and now. And stop.
Did not notice.
Just go back and watch it. It's one of the times in the Sinners. He has his back to the camera, just shakes his ass, and the camera goes. And Connie and I both just went, "Did you see that? Like, what the? Hang on,
this is my one chance."
It's like
the amount of hours it takes to edit these dumb asses is ridiculous. Anyway, here's another part we had to cut.
Yo, microphone check, make it a microphone check. Give it a microphone, make it a microphone dead. Don't step to me, newbie.
So there you go. There was another one of those jokes that we had to cut. You know, the folks at home are like, "Oh my God, what did they say?
What did they say?" And both times it's been me that said it.
Yeah. Well, you know, when it's me on the mixtape, I just leave them. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah,
they'd have to be real inappropriate before I cut them out. No, I just think that the prayer scene was a little abrupt for me because I'm like, this is Boy Meets World, not Highway to Heaven, and it was like, I'm not expecting it on Boy Meets World. It wasn't that I was just like, no.
Yeah, it honestly comes out of nowhere. Like, wow, now you're you're questioning your faith.
It was more of a shock than a total I'm against. It was just like, oh, shit, there we go. You know, so yeah. Here's my problem with this episode overall. and the biggest continuity error the show has ever had. Shawn walks out in the very last scene and he says, "Hey, Mr. Turner's going to be okay." And they were like, "Did he wake up?" And he's like, "No, I just believe he's going to be okay." And it's like, episode, everybody was happy, right? We never see Mr. Turner again. They until Girl Meets World. 20-some years later, we do not ever see Mr. Turner again.
And he's all scarred up from the motorcycle injury.
This was the second to the last episode of the season, and the show goes on for 3 or 4 more seasons. We never see him again. They never even really, I think they might reference him a little bit. So I went to do some research as to why that was, and it really sucked. I didn't like that they did it, but basically they interviewed him and he was like, well, they told me they were going to like amp up the relationship between he and Shawn. And then he's like, then I get a call in the off season saying, hey, they decided to move a different direction with the kids. They want to focus more on the kids in school. So some of the adult characters are going to be pulled way back. And that means you're off the show. And he's like, oh, well, that sucks. He's like, then I get a pilot for another show and it's looking really good. Only to find out Disney still has my contract, locked in a contract, but I can't do the show. So he had to go to Disney and be like, because they didn't know they might bring him back. But he's like, I had to go to Disney and be like, you guys, if you're not going to put me on, you need to let me out of my contract. And so they did. So I don't like that they did that.
Which means a whole new contract was drawn. I mean, it would have been anyway, but a whole new one was drawn up for Girl Meets World.
Yeah, well, I think he only
had to be
like a guest appearance on Girl Meets World.
Yeah,
but it's still one of those things. Like, it sucks because I like the character of Mr. Turner, and I don't like when somebody who was he was a major character for a couple of seasons just vanishes off the show like that. And I'm glad that Girl Meets World came about. And
like Minkus.
Yeah, well, but he wasn't as main a character as, and he's by the way, he's also on Girl Meets World. So yeah, I don't know. Like I said, a corny episode in parts. I get the importance of it. I don't know. I like the show overall, so it was always an enjoyable show. So it's one of those where I never glommed onto it as hard as some people do. But when you told me you did, I totally got why you did. So
yeah,
there you go. That's my thoughts.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on Mr. Turner?
Well, so not to get too deep, yeah, like Jay said, we both had some experience with, we'll say, the overly religious.
I should say
organized religion.
Let me give a small caveat on that. I was near a lot of it, and I had people, including somebody very close to me, very, very close to me, that actually fell into some of it. I never directly managed, like, I don't know. There was always a part of me that pulled away.
Yeah.
So Matt got hit a little more directly than I did.
Yeah.
I'll say. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So this, I honestly, like, a lot of it's kind of a blur at this point because this was many years ago. I got kind of drawn in. I got drawn in. Yeehaw. You know.
It's coming back, damn it.
Oh, damn. Son of a bitch. Play it for myself.
Oh, yeah. Stroke mouth. I love it. It wasn't me.
So, wow. That hasn't happened very often.
It's rare that it's
yeah,
not me
it's very rare that it's not him. But so no, I got kind of drawn into what I personally consider a kind of a cult.
Very culty. Yeah.
It was what I went to was basically billed as a weekend retreat, like I believe they are referred to as lock-ins a lot of times.
Sure. Yeah.
I was heavily involved in like church youth group and things like that. And I don't know how this particular one came up because it wasn't associated with my church. I'm not real sure how I got drawn into it, but I actually stayed in contact with a couple of people that were in that youth group, that youth retreat. I just got invited by somebody. I can't remember how it happened.
That's the way it happens, man.
And I went.
She saw you in class. She gave you a hug and told you should come hang out.
And honestly, that may be exactly what happened.
Probably very similar.
It may be exactly what happened.
Yeah, it was probably very simple.
But I went, and one of the first things they did was they took our watches if we had a watch. They took our phones if we had a cell phone. I'm talking, this is like Nokia brick phones back in the day. They literally cut us off from our families. And
wow, that's no bueno.
And when I say they took away our watches, we did not know what time of day it was.
As a parent, I would have been upset by that.
Well, I came home, like, literally, I actually went to this thing twice. The first time I didn't really realize what was going on. The second time I was like, this is just weird. But the first time I went, like I said, they take away your watch and you're sleeping there. It was a weekend long thing. You're all sleeping on the floor, on the cots, like whatever. And they wake you up at all hours of the night singing and like playing music and stuff. And like literally kind of sleep deprivation, just kind of getting you into this whole other weird headspace.
Is this in a place called Jonestown?
No, like, but here's really the thing.
Weird.
This is legitimately like something that happened, I want to say last weekend. Connie and I, no.
I know.
Okay, taking shit out of context. This is not what I meant.
But you gotta admit, that was hilarious.
The way I worded that was dumb.
This happened last week.
Yeah, this was like recent. No,
that was really good.
So last weekend, my wife and I were driving through a town nearby our house. I'm not going to say where, but we were driving by, and I saw the building out of the corner of my eye that this all took place in. Because every time we drive down that area, I've been kind of like on the lookout. I'm like, I know it was somewhere in this area, and I found it this past weekend. And I was like, that's the building. That's the place that I went to. And yeah, so that whole aspect of like him being kind of like brought into this cult, like everything's fine and we're all hanging out. In Boy Meets World's case, it was Mr. Mack. In this case, it was Jesus, essentially, that you were following.
Jesus was there?
Jesus was he was around us the whole time.
He just walked up on stage with long hair and a beard.
He's just like, hey guys, I'm back.
What's up? I need
Yeah.
your watches.
Yeah.
Okay.
Later on, we're going to surf on top of this van. It's going to be sweet.
Put your watches.
Yeah, put your watch, your cell phone if you have one.
If you have your wallet.
Dude, no, I mean, it was legitimately like...
Do any of you know your parents' social security numbers? We're going to need that too. Jesus, by the way.
So for the record, when I say they separate you from your parents, like literally people that were involved in like helping run this, which I actually later became one of the people. And that's when I realized like, oh, this is fucked up. Whenever like they would bring somebody to this lock-in, the people from the group would go out to the car. They would grab the person who is being dropped off, because these are like kids who don't drive themselves there. These are like junior high kids, right? And then they would bring them into the building like as quickly as possible, get them away from their family, and just like separate them. It's a weird, like the longer I've had to be out of that situation, the weirder things, hindsight being 2020, it seems extremely odd, the stuff that I experienced at that thing.
I did a lot of youth stuff with churches, and it wasn't like that. So yeah.
By the way, this is like an isolated incident, and like I've been to many other lock-ins and things that were all like church sponsored, and this was just a weird experience that I went to.
The difference between that's what we were saying, like they're one-off situations. Not all churches do this weird stuff.
And I like I said, I don't know how I got involved in it. It just was something that I went to.
Yeah, and on the surface, it can look good. Like
me saying yes to weird experiences sometimes gets you in weird, fucked up situations.
Sometimes it gets you into cool stuff. Yeah.
Sometimes you're hanging out with some celebrity you didn't expect to hang out with. Other times you're in a fucking cult. And yeah. But yeah, the other reason, and like I said, not to go, get too dark and depressing, but this particular scene right here, that I've experienced that exact thing where somebody close to you is in a coma and they may or may not come out. And in my case, they didn't come out. And
you're going way dark.
It's not intentional. I mean, you were talking about how it hit me hard, and that scene, like I didn't expect it. I'm sitting on the couch fucking crying because this was in the past couple of years that happened. And Yeah, we've actually mentioned this person on the show in the past, and I don't want to go, like I said, don't want to go too deep into it, but it popped up on the show, and yeah, we can add cult fiction from Boy Meets World to my list of weird shows and movies that make me cry, and it's a long list. Yeah,
and
there's
some of them are weird.
2 episodes of Glee. 2 episodes of Glee. Yep. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Let's not talk about it. Glee makes me cry too for different reasons.
It's got a curse like the Power Rangers does too. So.
30th anniversary, by the way.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Cool. Posted some stuff. And do you know where I posted stuff about that?
On our social media.
So we do have social media. So let's go real quick and tell you some of the other places you can find us. Obviously, we are on Facebook. We are on Mastodon. We are on Twitter. And we are on TikTok. And, of course, Instagram. So go over and check us out on all of those. We do a lot of postings about upcoming episodes and events and things along those lines. So please check that out.
Yeah.
We also have a podcast that this show spins off from. That podcast is the Mixtape Podcast. You can find that on Spotify, Pandora, iTunes, Google, any place you find your podcast. Essentially, that's a show where we talk mostly 80s, 90s, some early 2000s music. We talk a lot about music and occasionally about other things, but we like to bring those things over here. So please go check that out. We would appreciate it. If you guys have just half a second, if you could go down there and hit subscribe, that would be wonderful. We would really appreciate that as well. And go over and subscribe to the podcast. That would be awesome of you. And the last thing we really would be remiss if we didn't mention is the friends of the show. We have a lot of people we love, a lot of friends of the show that we like to give a little shout out to. You'll see them scrolling across the screen. These are other podcasts we highly recommend you going and checking out, because they're a lot of fun and they're great people. So go check them out as well. That being said, we really appreciate everybody who's been watching these videos. They're a lot of fun for us to do, sometimes a little traumatizing apparently, but also a lot of fun for us to do.
Unexpectedly traumatizing, yes.
We have more on the horizon. If you guys haven't figured it out, these very twisted episodes are like TV shows with the very special episode. And then we also do the full videos down there of movies that we watched that traumatized us as children for one reason or another.
Yep.
And those are the Twisted Kids, and we have more of those coming as well. So
really
appreciate everybody watching and sharing. Please continue to do so. Matt, is there anything else we should add? Again, you guys can watch every season of Boy Meets World over on Disney Plus. If so, go over there and check that out. All right, man, I'm going to go ahead and hand the reins back over to you. You can give the folks at home that phone number if they want to drop us a line, and you can close this sucker out.
Hey, guys. If you'd like to give us a call, the number is 513-437-2377. That's 513-HERAD77. Just call and leave us a voicemail. And until we meet, remember to always stay awesome. And just like us, you too are a Twisted Kid. And cut.
Thank you so much for watching. Check us out on Facebook at Tapeworms, fans of the Mixtape Podcast. We are on Twitter, Mastodon, and Instagram. Please subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. Remember, just like these morons, you too are a Twisted Kid.